I knew it.
Oh! Oh! Okay. It's recording. Alright, cool. Don't worry, I can edit this stuff out. What am I gonna say? Welcome to you guys. It says good. What's happening, people? It's Couple of Books, and I'm Nathan, and I am back as promised, right on time for my quarantine reads. I guess it's going to be. This is just going to be the past 5 books. Well, not the past 5 books, but the 5 books I read during quarantine, which helped keep me sane. Because, as you know, within the past 2 months, so much kind of bad stuff has been happening. The Black Lives Matter movement has been gaining a lot of momentum, but the only reason for that is because everything's been on camera, and you think to yourself, imagine if it wasn't on camera. And all the things that haven't been caught on camera, all the injustices and mistreatment and abuse of power which hasn't been caught on camera, just gets you thinking. And it kind of gets into your head, I guess, with social media as well. So, it's always good to get away. And my form of retreat, the way in which I get away from all of the noise is a great book. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even have to pay for the retreat. You don't even have to go on Skyscanner or anything like that. You can literally go on Waterstones and bag yourself a £7.99, including delivery, retreat, getaway. So anyway, without further ado, guys, the first book I'm going to be taking you guys through is Richard Wright's Native Son. So this book, I think I've finished reading it a couple of weeks back, and it took me about a week and a half to read a week, actually about a week, and it's got, 350 pages, a pretty small font, and, just to take you through Richard Wright, first of all. Richard Wright was born, I think when he actually made this book, he was 31, and he was born in a sharecropper's cabin, and his dad left him when he was 5, and his mum actually passed away from, I think it may have been cancer when he was 10. So, he had early on, his life was already defined in many ways that a lot of us don't have and wouldn't want to have. Anyway, enough of that. This book was actually nominated for Book of the Month, the Book Club of the Month, and he was the first African-American writer to be nominated for it. So, props to Richard Wright. And of course, the reason for that is because it's such a great book. It's a book which discusses, a quick synopsis. The book, it follows Bigger Thomas, who's the main character, who's from Chicago, and it's set in the 1940s. So, think about it. Chicago was quite an impoverished, and it still is to this day. So think about it in the 1960s. So it delves into the lives of black family, and also the battles they had to fight every day, just the battle to survive in a place like America in the 1940s. And I don't know why I keep on saying the 1940s, like a lot has changed since then, because shit ain't really changed. Like, let's not lie to ourselves, man. But yeah, so Bigger Thomas, and he's growing up, I think he's 18 in the book, and one night he commits a really unspeakable act, and his life is pretty much defined from that moment forward. And what's funny is that before you read this book, I would recommend reading the introduction by Richard Wright himself, because it really gives you a feel for what he was going for when he was writing it and the reason behind it. And Bigger Thomas, like I said, he commits this act on one night, and he ends up being at the front cover of a nationwide witch hunt for Bigger Thomas. And the act is a terrible one, you know what I mean? It's pretty much decapitation. I'm not going to go into detail because that would be a spoiler. And no, we don't do spoilers. But one thing I'd say is that while reading it and going from page to page is that you get a real scope and first person view into Bigger Thomas's psyche and the reasons why he did it. Not to say that I condone it, of course not, because it was a terrible thing like to do, but the fact that only when he did such a thing he actually felt some kind of agency over his life in terms of being able to dictate what he wanted to do and feeling that he actually got some attention finally for once in his life. You know, he wasn't just a black guy growing up in Chicago, part of the voiceless, the miseducated and the mistreated and the dehumanized. He became, you know, for those how many days he was in the public eye, he mattered, I'd say. He finally mattered. And that's a really sad and deep aspect to the whole story is that, you know, growing up in America, why is it that why do we feel like we're invisible? And Richard Wright, he does hit that on the head. And also, just a little backstory behind the book. Before this book, Richard Wright wrote a novel called Uncle Tom's Children. And it actually received like really good reviews from a lot of critics. It was admired far and wide, but it pissed Richard Wright off. And, you know, and one of the novels, and this is a quote from him himself, he said, and I'm going to read it, "I found that I had written a book which even the bank's daughter's child read, and wait, okay, let me go back again, because I can't really see this. I found that I had written a book which even the bank's daughters could read and weep over and feel good about." In that, Richard Wright, he hated that. He didn't want people to feel good about the black narrative in America. He wanted people to sit with it and feel uncomfortable. And that is what Native Son did. It sparked a nationwide conversation across America, and it made, I'd say, it opened dialogue. It opened a huge path of dialogue as to the reasons why black males in America growing up are kind of, they find themselves in such a perilous position in society. And I guess Bigger Thomas's demise was I'd say it's a mirror, a perfect reflection of the society in which he was growing up in. It's like, you know, the kind of, yeah, this is me, look at me, society, you guys, this is what you made, and you guys have to kind of live with it, stick it up, or suck it, stick it up or get out, sort of thing. So yeah, you know, yeah, props. All I can say is that it's a book packed with a lot of knowledge and a lot of social, economical, and political issues in America, which a lot of them are still very, very prominent in today's landscape. And read it, you know what I mean? That's all I can say. And this is actually a second-hand one. I got it off eBay for like £4. And funny enough, it's got so much annotations and stuff from... Anyway, you know what? I'm waffling, but, you know, little cool things. I don't know when... Yeah, this book's like 40 years old, so it's really quite cool. Anyway, moving on, guys. Next, we have, and this is the second book now. This is Abi Daré's... No, Mum, I'm recording, please. The Girl with the Louding Voice, Abi Darè. And this is a signed copy, funny enough. See, I'm going to keep on showing this cover just to let it ruminate, because I want you guys to really grasp the beauty of this cover. You know, such a colourful, vibrant and textured book cover. You know, it's one of those ones where, even though I bought it online, if this had been on a Waterstone shelf, instantly my eyes this would catch my attention, and I probably would have bought it anyway if I hadn't heard about the great reviews. Yeah, so that's Girl of the Loud Voice, and this book is written by Abi Darè, and she was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and she's been living in the UK for the past 18 years. Yeah, and this book was published in 2020, so the start of the year, brand new book. Just a quick outline of the story. It follows Adoni, who is 14 years old, and first of all, she's in a village in Nigeria, and she ends up moving to Lagos, so the big city of Lagos, the prosperous city of Lagos, and she's a house girl. And the book pretty much, I'd say it's about, it confronts the dreams and intelligence of every girl in Nigeria, and the house girl specifically, and the ways in which these house girls are kind of marginalized and they are mistreated. And in saying that, Adoni's time as a house girl, it chronicles the abuse which she went through from, because she's a house girl of a really rich woman, powerful and prominent figure in Nigeria, in Lagos, and she's pretty much treated like shit on the bottom of your shoe. Although she has dreams of her own, she wants to be a teacher, she wants to go back to school. But as you can imagine, being a house girl, your life is put on hold. Your education is put on the back burner, and you are literally, your life becomes, you don't live your life, you know what I mean? It becomes, you live to serve, and in that, your dreams and your aspirations and your intelligence is pretty much lost. And it's a really educational read, and because house girls and the disparities of wealth between the rich and the poor in Nigeria, especially Lagos, is prominent in this book, and I wasn't really privy to it before reading it. And one thing which I'd really enjoyed about the book also is the fact that it's written in broken English. So Adoni is, at the start of the book, her English isn't the best, and it's written in broken English. But one of the great things about that is that you can still gauge her intelligence and her wittiness. She's a really witty character, really funny, and feisty. She's got her own personality. And in that, I'd say this is part of Abby's genius, is that it's kind of like knowing a language really well doesn't at all, it's not a gauge for your intelligence, if you know what I mean. Like, she may not have known English to the highest level, but you could tell from reading it that she was a very smart, just quick girl, you know what I mean? She had her head screwed on, and language is not a barrier. And that's one thing that Abby goes into. But that was The Girl of the Loud Voice. There's so much more I could discuss, but of course it's a thing where I have to tell you, and I can't show you, because if I was to show you, that would be a spoiler, and we don't do spoilers. All I can say is that, now bookshops are open, head to your local Waterstones, W.H. Smith, and pick yourself up a copy. It's a great book, and I guarantee you will not regret it. Okay, so moving on to my third book, and this happens to be one of my favourite books of quarantine. And I've read so many great ones, you know what I mean? I'd give Richard Wright and Girl of the Loud Voice both 5, and 4.5 out of 10. 4.5 out of 5 for Native Son, 5 out of 10 for The Girl of the Loud Voice, and a 5 out of 5. I mean, not 5 out of 10, 5 out of 5. And 5 out of 5 for Kiese Lemon's Heavy. So this book is a memoir, and it's the first memoir in this list. So it chronicles Kiese Lemon's time from him, I think he's maybe 15 or 14 at the start of the book, and he's now 45. It kind of comes up to about 40 or so. And he is a black boy growing up in Mississippi in the 1970s, deep south. Mississippi was also a sundown town and sundown towns. Some of you may know, some of you may not know that it's a town where, when the sun goes down, if you're black, you don't want to be around. That wasn't even meant to rhyme, but mad. Yeah. And I've got there we are, sundown towns. I don't know if you can see. Oh, okay, forget it. Anyway, so this book, it chronicles his time, his life from 14, real life, and Kiese Laymon is an absolutely breathtaking writer, a stunning writer. He has a proficiency for writing which only a few have, and it made the book a really, really enjoyable read. I mean, enjoyable in the fact that it was just free flowing and cohesive and dynamic, but not enjoyable because it tackles so many issues being a black man in America. You know what I mean? As Native Son does. This goes into detail, just a few things which he touches on. One of the key components throughout the book is the mother-son relationship, and the ways in which the mother-son relationship is kind of from a young age, or even from the day you come out of the womb. That relationship plays a role-defining lead role in your life. The fact that Kiese's relationship with his mum was a bit strained, and that showed up in a lot of his tendencies which he developed later on in life, including addiction, whether it be gambling, weight loss and weight gain, and just different personality traits which it kind of, you see from reading it from the first page to the last, you see it develop and how it developed. It gave me a real kind of good gauge on just how people, you know what I mean, there's adults out today, you see them and you just see them as their own entity, but they really do they have been molded from way before you've seen them, and they are the person they are today, sort of thing. But Kiese Laymon, he is a professor in English, and that's one of the reasons why it's such a great read, why he's such a great writer. And he also and another topic which he touches on is mental health. A thing which is being much talked about in the black community lately, and the fact that our mental health isn't given as much, or nearly as much, say and time and space as it should. You know what I mean? Mental health should be above physical health in many aspects. And he touches on that, the fact his stints with mental health and going to therapy, and it wasn't for him. And it's just cool that he kind of, I guess that comes with the book, because one of the things about the book, and I forgot to mention it earlier, is that it's a really honest, I've never read a book which is so honest. His commitment to bear all truths to the reader and just leave it all on the page was a real kind of it really makes for a wholesome read, and also a heavy read. You know what I mean? To the name, it's called heavy for a reason. It's a heavy read because he's such a truthful guy, and he really does tell you everything about his life, the difficulties, and the trials and tribulations which he had to struggle through, etc., etc. Yeah, you know what? It's a great book, man. Really good memoir. I've read a few memoirs lately, and this happens to be one of my favourites. So, yeah, that's Kiese Laymon's An American Memoir. Grab it if you can. If you can't, you know what I mean, do your thing. Now, fourth book, we have Chimamanda Ngozi's Adichie's We Should All Be Feminists. So this is a lot lighter than the previous three books, and that is because it's actually adapted from her 2018 TED Talk on feminism. And as you can tell from the title of the book, this book is a really kind of not down your throat, just subtle but meaningful book on why we should all be feminists. And it's full of little anecdotes from Ngozi's childhood and just different situations she's been in through her adult life, and met different women and their viewpoints and just little stories. One of them is just one of the many things, even though it's only 48 pages, and you can really read this book in about 25 to 30 minutes, you know what I mean? I've passed this book to my mum, I've passed it to my sister, so whoever wants it next, drop it in the comments and I'll post it to you. I'm only kidding. Maybe. But it's packed of just so much, you know what I mean? Even though, I guess it's because it is adapted from a speech, but yeah, it tackles marriage and the wedding ring and the fact that men are intimidated by women such as Chimamanda, and just so many different other things. And it's just a cool, informal and really just nicely written piece on feminism and what it is, you know what I mean, simply put, and why we should all be feminists. There's not really much to say about it. It's one of those books which, you just read, you know what I mean, just have a read, nice, short and sweet, finish it on one bus ride or something like that. But yeah, that's Chimamanda and Ngozi's We Should All Be Feminists. If I'm giving the other books ratings, yeah, this was a 4.5 out of 5. Really good read, you know. I mean, I can't really fault it, to be honest. It feels even weird rating it. And lastly, but not least, and this shakes it up even more. Yep, because you know why? This is a poem. A poem book, and it's by Nikki Giovanni, and it's called Love Poems. Lovely front cover. You know what I mean? Love, red, all that, you know, yeah. It does what it says on the tin. It's about love poems. And it's funny to me that I even bought this because it's my first poem book in years. Well, really since Anthology, since year 11, 10 times. I guess since then, I kind of hated poetry just because the way in which we had to study it, that kind of roboticized way that the English education likes to teach our kids. Fucking shit. Anyway, Nikki Giovanni's Love Poems. It's just to give you the gravity of this poem book, because it's not just love poems. It's got a lot of meaning behind it. The second page, I found out that it's actually dedicated to Tupac Shakur, and this is a little 5 sentences which she wrote on him, in memory of him. A lover whose love was often deliberately misunderstood, but who will live in the sun and the rains, and whose name will echo through all the winds, whose spirit will flower, and who, like Emmett Till and Malcolm X, will be remembered by his people for the great man he could have become, and most especially for the beautiful boy that he was. Really heartfelt, and I just really respected that, you know what I mean? And I'll take you through, just because I can't really talk much about it. My favourite poem in this book is called My House. And if I can find this, yes, My House. So I'll read you the first few stanzas, you remember that, from Anthology. Haven't used that word in a couple years. Anyway, I want to kiss you. I only want to, let's start that again. I only want to be there to kiss you, as you want to be kissed, when you need to be kissed. Where I want to kiss you, because it's my house, and I plan to live in it. I really need to hug you, when I want to hug you, as you like to be hugged. Does this sound like a silly poem? I mean, it's my house. I want to fry pork chops and bake sweet potatoes, and call these yams, because I run the kitchen. And I can stand the heat. I spent all winter in the carpet stores gathering patches so I could make a quilt. Does this really sound like a silly poem? I mean, I want to keep you warm. That's like halfway. I'm gonna leave it there. You guys can read the other half if you want to get the book. But yeah, you get you get it. You know what I mean? It's just a nice, really light book. And I guess I read this a couple months ago, about a month and a half ago, when we were just in the thick of quarantine, when the weather was like blazing it down, like we were in bloody Ochi Rio's Jamaica or something. And it's a lovely little read, very light read to just read while you're hanging out on a hammock or lying down on the grass in the park. Or maybe if you have hay fever, maybe not lying on the grass, stick to the hammock. Just something, while the sun is be warming your skin, you got a nice book on love poems warming your heart. You know, you can't really have it any better than that. Yeah. Anyway, guys, that draws to a close my first proper video on my quarantine reads. And I guess it's... and if you're looking at the patch in my beard, you probably haven't noticed, but I had a shave before to look presentable for the video. And I ended up... shaved the whole thing anyway. But life goes on. It's not like I'm leaving the house anyway. So I'll be here looking like a bum. Yeah, so that draws to a close quarantine reads. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'm going to stop waffling and let you guys get on with your lives. You know what I mean? I've put you through enough already. And with that, I'll be back next week with some more book reviews. And until then, I would say to enjoy the sun. But there is no sun. And the weather forecast doesn't look great for the next few days. So, maybe you can just stay in your ass, as if you haven't been doing enough of that. Stay in your ass, read a book, get away, escape, you know what I mean? And until then, I'll see you soon. Until then, enjoy your life. Oh yeah, sorry. And subscribe and like. Always forget. Subscribe and like if you really like this video. So you'll see me back here next week. And follow my Instagram, Couple of Books. If you haven't already, I write reviews and take some cool pictures. I try to make it cool in that. Anyway, guys, take care.